So my piece is called From Shadows to Gold. And it's the story of my life. Thank each one of you for being here this evening, allowing me the opportunity to share it with you. My personal journey has been an amazing combination of contrasting experiences. Spiritually unconscious, much of my life, I have chose to judge and deceive others, avoid commitments, create conflict, and live within a context of violence. My thoughts and behaviors stem from a background of fear, and I often failed to understand why I made the decisions that I made. I eventually realized that I had learned to survive by protecting myself and from being or becoming vulnerable. In the absence of parents and family to support me, I began building a psychological and physical wall around myself that provided feelings of safety and also isolated me from my deeper spirit and other people. I look back on my life as a journey, a slow, often painful and confusing journey, from what I call the unknown shadows towards ever-increasing experiences of peace, contentment, and joy. My journey began almost 5 decades ago and would take me from innocence into violence, from trust into pain, and from an experience of being loved and protected into the shadows of hatred, fear, and isolation. From these shadows, I would gradually evolve into a person who would choose self-reflection, discipline, and the courage to change. In the beginning, I learned to believe that if I lived unprotected, people would abandon me, lie to me, harm me emotionally and physically. I believed these things because as a child, these experiences became my reality and changed me forever. I'm 5 years old. I cry out as I watch my mother beaten by my stepfather. He punches her in the face again and again and again until she stops screaming and thrashing in a vain attempt to resist. And I, sitting on a dirty carpet in a rundown hotel room, watch my mother limp and unconscious, lying face down, quiet, on a blood-stained mattress, and I feel powerless, afraid, and alone. My innocence, my trust in the world ended that night. A lifetime of violence would follow. I learned to protect myself, to fight others, to utilize my physical strength to protect, intimidate, abuse all the people that I hated and the people that I loved. I am 9 years old. I began to question my mother's hypocrisy, confront her with questions and comments about her lifestyle and why she wasn't taking care of her children. She would rarely return home, and when she did, she was usually drunk, exhausted, irritable, and distant. An alcoholic and drug user, she would disappear for days. With men I did not know, men who supported her addictions. One evening I grew angry. There was no food for my brother and I yelled at her, accusing her of trading our family's food stamps for her cigarettes and alcohol. She picked up a broken broom handle and struck me. It was the first time I had experienced my mother in rage. I realized in shock that she had hurt me. Her first strike had bloodied my face. The second knocked me to the floor as I covered my face in fear. Her assault persisted with strikes to my body and hands. Suddenly, feelings of powerlessness and fear boiled inside me, turning to rage. I willed myself up off the floor and grabbed the stick from my mother's hand. I hit her in the face with as much force as my small muscles could demand. She screamed, blood gushed from her nose, and she ran from the room, crying. I immediately felt a deep sense of remorse that broke my heart. However, I also felt empowered. I had been attacked and survived. I had struck back and won. That night I pleaded with my young brother to run away with me. We could take care of each other. He didn't need to be afraid. My brother was confused and fearful, refusing to leave with me. So I filled a small backpack and crawled out my bedroom window. I noticed the darkness and cold outside the window. And as my brother cried softly, I assured him I would return. I never did. I am 11 years old. It was a summer, and my adopted father asked me if I would travel with him from Oregon to California. We could have the opportunity to visit Yosemite National Park, Disneyland, and maybe even cross the Golden Gate Bridge. How exciting. I had never been on a real vacation before and would finally get to meet Mickey Mouse, maybe even Cinderella. I loved the idea of my father and I exploring places that I had never seen. We arrived in California 3 days later, and although I was exhausted from camping and hiking, I couldn't recall feeling so happy. That night, my father slipped into my bedroom. He said that he loved me and promised he had never done anything like that before. He shared in a reassuring voice that I was very special to him and that it was okay for us to have sex. He rationally explained that having sex with him would stop me from getting girls pregnant and having babies. Years passed slowly, and I realized that my father had manipulated and betrayed my trust in him. I also learned that he had molested his best friend's son and another boy. I felt angry, and he had lied to me, made me feel so worthless. I grew angry and soon found the courage to tell him I was leaving forever. I had been abandoned and molested by the two men that I loved the most and held little trust for men. I continued on in the world, a young boy attempting to become a man, surviving the best that I could. I was unaware that my psychological armor and sense of isolation were beginning to feel normal to me. I continued to make choices in my life, leading me to separation, anger, violence, fights, conflicts with teachers, and ultimately into the U.S. military. And now I'm 22 years old, a corporal in the U.S. Marines. Years of physical and mental training have developed me into a machine-like warrior who carried out orders regardless of consequences. I was narcissistic, emotionally disconnected, and unable to develop meaningful relationships with people. One of my missions was to patrol the U.S.-Mexican border and capture illegal immigrants, returning them to the Border Patrol for deportation. I had tracked down a young girl with a baby in her arms. She was frightened and crying, and I could feel my heart breaking. I was suddenly aware of how heavy I felt. The weight of my weapons, ammunition, and armor was almost more than I could bear. I knelt down on one knee and wondered why. Why was I there? Why was my hatred for others so deep? Why did I feel alone and so weak? My heart opened in those few moments, and I realized that my feelings of love and compassion were stronger than the conditioning, stronger than my pain. I chose to give the girl a pack, food, water, and told her to go. Watching her run into the darkness, I was reminded of a young boy climbing out of his bedroom window so very long ago. I'm 48, participating in a weekend seminar focused on observing personal patterns and experiences in my life, looking at the ways I've held myself back. This experience very clearly allowed me to see that because of specific occurrences in my childhood, I had become a survivor, conditioned to being unavailable to others, both physically and emotionally. I've learned that looking into the shadows and facing what hides there has allowed me to clearly see and heal the destructive conditioning received from my childhood, from my military experience, and certain aspects of the masculine culture in which I have lived. By becoming aware of my thoughts and learning to change my behaviors, I shifted from living in my shadows of fear to contributing to the growth and awareness of others. I have become a man who consciously strives to demonstrate compassion, forgiveness, and love. I continue my personal journey towards wholeness with gold in my heart.